as I don't want to annoy Daniel, I decided to make a shorter version of my assignment 3 and regression testing video. And the two basic problems related to regression testing is that you're testing the full functionality of the product, which means that you have a lot of test cases to cover and a lot of functionality that needs to be tested, and that the testing phase is normally done at a late stage in the project, which means that there's very little time to execute these test cases. This means that you need to be really picky on selecting the test cases to execute. And a few definitions used in the process of selecting these test cases is minimization, selection, and prioritization, which means that you remove duplicated test cases testing same kind of functionality requirements. You limit the scope of your testing by perhaps focusing on a certain area, and you prioritize some test cases to be run, and also in which order to run these test cases. So the paper I read was about this problem on selecting the test cases, and the problem that they faced was that their regression test suite didn't finish during the nightly tests. There were a lot of manual work needed, and they also forgot to restore test cases if they have previously been removed from the test suite due to, for example, a lack of functionality or faulty functions. And they were also having no priorities on their test cases, so every test case was treated with the same priority. The first thing that they tackled was the prioritization of the test cases, and actually instead of just adding one priority to the test case, they added different kind of groups or functions of prioritization. For example, a fail priority would increase the possibility of the priority to rerun the test case if it has been failed lately. Since they had multiple prioritizers, they needed a merging functionality of these priorities where they give a certain weight to each prioritizer and then include it with the individual priority or test case that calculate a final average for the test case. So now when they have allocated priority to the test case, they also tackle the problem with not running the test suite during the night run. And they did it by allocating a certain time window for the complete test suite to be run, and then by looking at the test execution time of each test case, and then by just mapping as many test cases that can fit within this test window. All of this they implemented in automatically in a tool that they nowadays call Suite Builder. And if we now take a look at the result of this, that with this time window and looking at the execution time, they could find out that almost all of the suites were run more or less within this time window, given the manual test cases. Since they nowadays don't need to remove them, they can also complete well, they don't forget about adding back test cases again because they don't remove them from the suite. It's taken care of by the tool. And the priority of the test cases have been solved by assigning multiple priorities to the test case. For the feature, they were considering other kind of suites. For example, smoke test suite, different prioritizers. They don't tackle, if you remember from the definitions, the minimization at all, so they don't really remove any duplicated test cases. When it comes to my own thoughts, the main things, what I really like is that they don't have a static series anymore. The order of the tests in the way they run them, they will change all over the time, so that they focus on running the test case that will ordinarily find the bugs as early as possible, so that they get a really quick feedback loop if the functionality is working or not. What I'm a bit skeptic about is how will this work on a real large-scale system. I was thinking, for example, on a banking system or something similar. When you have millions of lines of codes, you probably have thousands of tags. So how will these prioritizers for the tagging work in this kind of system? That's where I'm a bit skeptic. But overall, I think that they tackle the problem of selecting the most appropriate test cases in the test suite for regression very well, and also that they finish the suite on time, so they get a quick feedback loop. That is something really good and what I really like about the product. And then a couple of links if you want to read the full paper. And as I would recommend is, if you're really interested in this, then take a look on the bit longer video. Thanks.